Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. One look at Earth's fleet, and the enemy realized their doom was inevitable. The silent threat. Supreme Commander Tal of the Meridian Alliance stood motionless before the hollow display, his scaled fingers tapping rhythmically against the crystalline console. The blue-green planet, rotating slowly in the projection, seemed so unremarkable, another water world with sprawling land masses dotted by the telltale lights of civilization. Earth, they called it, a backwater planet at the edge of a spiral arm, technologically adolescent by Meridian standards. "Are you certain about this assessment?" Telex asked, his multiple eyelids blinking in sequence, a sign of skepticism among his kind. Science Director Valon stepped forward, her ceremonial armor glinting under the chamber's cold light. "Absolutely, Commander. Our deep space probes have been monitoring them for 3 solar cycles. They've barely established a foothold on their own moon. Their ships are primitive, chemical propellants, rudimentary ion drives. They have no faster-than-light capability that we can detect." Telex circled the hologram, examining the scattered satellites orbiting the planet. Most were simple communication relays, whether monitors or crude observation platforms, nothing that suggested advanced weaponry or defensive capabilities. "And yet they detected our scout ship," he murmured. "A fluke," Valon dismissed with a wave of her hand. "Their orbital radars happened to catch our signature during routine trajectory adjustment. It means nothing." Telex wasn't convinced. The Meridian Alliance had conquered 17 solar systems without resistance, absorbing resources and subjugating native species with mechanical efficiency. Their method was always the same: observe, infiltrate, demonstrate overwhelming force, then accept immediate surrender. No species had ever presented a meaningful challenge once the Alliance revealed its true technological superiority. But something about these humans troubled him. Their response to the scout detection was unusual. He said most preftal civilizations panic when they realize they're not alone. These humans sent a direct message to our scout, not pleased for peace or terrified queries about our intentions. They simply said, "We see you. Identify yourself or be considered hostile." Valon recited, "Yes, Commander, but this is merely bravado. They have no concept of our capabilities." Telex turned to Fleet Marshal Krell, who had been silently observing from the shadows. "Your thoughts, Marshal?" Krell, a veteran of the last 3 expansion campaigns, stepped into the light. His face was a web of ritual scars, each marking a conquered world. "I've reviewed their military history, Commander. It's concerning." "Concerning?" Valon scoffed. "Their weapons are kinetic or chemical-based. Their most devastating weapon splits atoms. We harness the power of collapsed stars. It's not their technology that concerns me," Krell continued. "It's their nature. In the brief span of their recorded history, these humans have engaged in constant warfare against the environment, against other species on their planet, and most notably against themselves." He activated his own data projection, displaying a timeline of Earth's major conflicts. Most spacefaring races evolved past their violent tendencies as a prerequisite for global cooperation and technological advancement. These humans never did. They simply became more efficient at warfare while developing everything else. Telex studied the projection. "Recommendation: Standard protocol would suggest an immediate show of force, position our dreadnoughts in their atmosphere, neutralize their primitive defense systems, and accept their surrender," Krell said flatly. "But I recommend caution. We should probe further, test their responses with minimal engagement." Valon made a dismissive clicking sound with her mandibles. "Unnecessarily cautious. Our dominance should be established swiftly. Any delay only gives them time to prepare, however futile their efforts might be." Telex considered both perspectives. Alliance protocol was clear, and 17 successful conquests couldn't be argued with. Yet Krell's instincts had proven valuable in the past. "We'll compromise," he decided. "Send 3 warships, enough to demonstrate superiority without committing the full fleet. Target their largest military installation. Once they understand resistance is pointless, we'll proceed with resource assessment and population processing." Valon seemed satisfied, while Krell's expression remained impassive. 3 days later, Telex would remember this moment with bitter regret. The Meridian warships emerged from fold space approximately 300,000 km from Earth, their obsidian hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. dark predators against the star-studded backdrop. Each vessel was nearly 2 kilometers in length, shaped like elongated arrowheads with protruding weapon arrays and energy field generators. On the bridge of the lead ship, Captain Mares observed the target planet with clinical detachment. Scans detect multiple military installations. Largest concentration appears to be on the continent they call North America. Optimal demonstration would be their naval base, designated Pacific Fleet Command. Proceed. Her second-in-command acknowledged. Weapons charging. Atmospheric entry in 60 seconds. The 3 warships accelerated toward Earth. Their quantum shields displaced the atmosphere as they descended through clouds toward the blue expanse of ocean below. On their sensors, the human naval vessels appeared as tiny, fragile toys, primitive constructs of metal floating helplessly on the water's surface. "They're attempting communication," the communications officer reported. "Ignore it," Mares ordered. "Standard intimidation protocol, we speak only after the demonstration." The lead warship positioned itself directly above the naval base while the other 2 took flanking positions, targeting systems locked onto the largest vessels in the harbor. "Energy lances at 20% capacity," the weapons officer announced. "Target solutions acquired. Fire," Mares commanded. Brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced downward from the Meridian vessels, vaporizing 3 aircraft carriers and their surrounding support ships in an instant. Superheated steam erupted skyward as seawater flashed to vapor. Secondary explosions rippled through the base as ammunition depots and fuel reserves ignited. "First phase complete," Mares reported dispassionately. "Moving to secondary targets." That's when the impossible happened. "Captain," the sensor officer's voice cracked with alarm. "Multiple launches detected, not from the base but from underwater positions surrounding our location." Before Mares could respond, the ocean's surface broke in dozens of locations as missiles erupted from the depths, streaking upward toward the Meridian vessels. "Primitive ballistic weapons," she dismissed. "Shields will—" The first missile detonated not against their shields, but 50 m before impact. Instead of an explosion, it released a concentrated electromagnetic pulse modulated precisely to the frequency of Meridian shield technology. The shield around the 3rd warship flickered momentarily, just long enough for 3 subsequent missiles to reach the hull itself. The explosions weren't the crude chemical detonations the Meridians expected. Instead, they produced precisely focused plasma bursts that melted through the supposedly impenetrable hull material, breaching the warship's antimatter containment system. The Meridian vessel didn't simply explode. It ceased to exist, converted entirely to energy in a blinding flash that temporarily overloaded all sensor systems. When the sensors cleared, Captain Mares found her ship surrounded not by primitive naval vessels, but by advanced submarines surfacing in a tactical pattern. More alarming were the readings now appearing at the edge of their detection range. Orbital platforms, previously camouflaged as weather satellites, were repositioning, revealing weapon systems far beyond what the humans should possess. "This was a trap," she whispered as the terrible realization dawned. "They knew we were coming. They were waiting for us." "Captain," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on our secure command frequency." "Impossible," Mares snapped. "That encryption is Meridian Alliance vessels." A calm human voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect Meridian language. "You have engaged in unprovoked hostilities against Earth. Your actions have been classified as an act of war. You now face the full defensive capabilities of the Terran Defense Coalition." The sensor display suddenly bloomed with new contacts, hundreds of them emerging from concealed lunar bases, from beneath the ocean's surface, from camouflaged orbital positions. What had appeared to be primitive satellites now reconfigured, weapon systems unfolding from hidden compartments. "Our deep space monitoring detected your fold space signatures 3 weeks ago," the voice continued. "We've been tracking your movements across 17 systems. We know what you've done to other worlds." "Earth will not be the 18th. Mares stared in disbelief as the sensor officer reported in a shaking voice. "Captain, I'm detecting over 200 warships approaching from the dark side of their moon. They're weapons. They're not human technology. They're using modified Arcturian phase cannons and Skithel shield disruptors." "Impossible," Mares breathed. Those species were extinct before you destroyed them. The human voice interrupted. Yes, we know their survivors found refuge here. They shared their technology, their histories, and most importantly, their warnings about the Meridian Alliance. Outside the viewports, Earth's hidden fleet became visible. Ships of various designs, some clearly influenced by alien technologies, others uniquely human. They were not the elegant, uniform vessels of the Meridian fleet. These were brutalist constructions, armored behemoths bristling with weapons, bearing scars and patch repairs that spoke of previous battles. The most chilling aspect wasn't their unexpected technology or numbers. It was the complete absence of hesitation or fear in their movements. These weren't the actions of a species encountering superior alien technology for the first time. This was the coordinated response of a battle-hardened civilization that had prepared for this exact scenario. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapon systems and prepare to be boarded, the human voice stated without emotion. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. Earth does not recognize the authority of the Meridian Alliance in this or any star system. In the Alliance command chamber light years away, Supreme Commander Tal watched the live feed with stunned silence as the humans revealed their true nature, not as primitive savages ripe for conquest, but as a silent, sentinel species that had been watching, learning, and preparing while appearing vulnerable. The Meridians had hunted across the stars for easy prey, never realizing they had finally encountered a predator more patient and cunning than themselves. "We have made," Telak whispered, as the feed showed hundreds of Earth vessels surrounding the remaining Meridian warships, "a terrible mistake. The reversal." Supreme Commander Tal paced the length of the Meridian Alliance's war chamber, the crystalline floor illuminating with each step. What had begun as a routine conquest had transformed into an unprecedented crisis. The holographic displays surrounding him showed real-time updates from the Earth engagement, or more accurately, the Earth catastrophe. "How did we miss this?" demanded the gathered High Command. "Science Director." Valon looked physically ill, her scales having lost their luster. "They deceived us deliberately, projecting technological inferiority. The satellites we observed were decoys. Their actual defense grid was hidden beneath oceanic installations or disguised as space debris." "It's worse than that," interrupted Intelligence Marshal Zarin, activating a new holographic display. "Our analysts have decoded some of their secure transmissions. The humans didn't just hide their capabilities, they'd been studying us for decades. They intercepted our deep space communications, mapped our conquest patterns, even infiltrated our outposts in neighboring systems." Telak stared at the evidence with mounting horror. "And the other species, the Arcturians, the Scathul, we were certain they were extinct." "Not extinct," Zarin replied grimly. "Refugees when we conquered their worlds, some escaped. The humans gave them sanctuary, and in exchange they shared everything they knew about us." Tal finished, the realization like ice in his veins. A priority alert flashed across the command displays. Captain Mari's face appeared, her expression tense but controlled despite her situation. "Supreme Commander," she began formally, "I regret to report that both remaining warships have been captured by Earth Defense Forces. They employed targeted electromagnetic pulse weapons followed by boarding parties. Their technology includes Z-Thal phase shifters that allowed them to bypass our hull integrity fields. Resistance was futile." Tal noted the careful wording. "Casualties?" he asked. "Minimal, they used non-lethal suppression methods." Her eyes conveyed surprise at this fact. "Supreme Commander, these humans, they're not what we thought. Their soldiers wear powered exoskeletons that match our strength. They speak our language perfectly. And they—" She hesitated, looking off-camera briefly. "They've requested direct communication with Alliance High Command. They say they're prepared to negotiate terms." "Terms?" Fleet Marshal Krell barked incredulously. "They are in no position to dictate." "With respect, Marshal," Maris interrupted, an unprecedented breach of protocol that silenced the chamber. "We are the ones with no position. The Earth fleet now numbers over 500 vessels. They've deployed a blockade around our remaining ships, and their lunar defense platforms have targeting locks on our home coordinates." A stunned silence fell across the war chamber. Targeting locks on the Meridian home world should have been impossible. The coordinates were the Alliance's most closely guarded secret. They're bluffing, Valon insisted. They couldn't possibly. Director Valon? A new voice cut in as the transmission shifted. A human appeared on screen, a female, middle-aged by their standards, wearing a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia. I am Admiral Helena Chin, Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Coalition. I assure you this is not a bluff. To prove her point, a secondary display activated, showing a live feed of the Meridian home world, specifically the heavily fortified moon base that served as their primary defense installation. As they watched, a precision energy beam glanced down from seemingly empty space, vaporizing a small, uninhabited monitoring station on the moon's surface that was fired from a stealth platform we positioned in your home system 6 months ago. Admiral Chen stated calmly, "We have 23 similar platforms in position. The next demonstration, if needed, will target your antimatter production facilities. This is an act of war." Tal declared, his composure finally breaking. "No, Commander Tal." "Chen," she corrected him, "you firing on our Pacific Fleet Command was an act of war. This is the consequence." The human admiral's image expanded on the display. Her expression was not triumphant or threatening, but weary, the face of someone who had prepared for conflict but took no joy in it. "For 30 years, we've watched your alliance expand through this sector of the galaxy. We've documented the extinction of the Proxton civilization, the enslavement of the Tainer, the strip mining of 17 inhabited worlds. We've given sanctuary to your victims, learned from them, and prepared accordingly." She leaned closer to the camera. "Humanity's history is bloody, Commander. We've spent millennia fighting ourselves, perfecting the art of warfare while simultaneously hoping we'd evolve beyond it. When we realized we weren't alone in the universe, we were initially hopeful. Instead, we discovered predators among the stars." A series of documents appeared in a secondary display, detailing intelligence reports on Meridian conquest methodologies, biological studies of their weaknesses, and most disturbingly, contingency plans for full-scale war against the alliance that had been continuously refined over decades. "We could have contacted you when we first detected your presence," Chen continued. "We chose not to. Instead, we watched and learned. We maintained the appearance of a primitive, fractured civilization while unifying in secret. We studied your weapons, your tactics, your biology. We prepared for the worst while hoping for better." Now Telax asked, struggling to maintain dignity in this catastrophic reversal, "Now we negotiate." Chen replied, "Despite what you may believe, we don't seek your extinction. Humanity has enough blood on its hands. We're offering terms that may surprise you." The terms appeared on screen. Immediate cessation of all Meridian conquest operations. Establishment of demilitarized zones between human and Meridian space. Reparations to surviving members of conquered species. Exchange of scientific and cultural knowledge under supervised conditions. Gradual integration into a multi-species council with equal representation. Telak stared at the list in disbelief. "These aren't the demands of conquerors. We're not conquerors." "Commander Chen," she stated firmly, "we're survivors who refuse to become the monsters we fought. Humanity united not to dominate, but to endure. We built our fleet not for expansion, but for protection, ours and others." Fleet Marshal Krell, who had been silently analyzing the situation, finally spoke. "And if we refuse these terms?" Chen's expression hardened slightly. "Then we demonstrate why it would be unwise to make enemies of humanity. Our fleet is mobilized. Our weapons are targeted, and unlike the Meridian Alliance, we don't leave survivors to tell cautionary tales." The threat hung in the air, made more chilling by the calm, matter-of-fact delivery. "You have 6 hours to begin preliminary discussions." "Well, maintain our current defensive posture until then. Choose wisely, Commander Tal." The transmission ended, leaving the Meridian High Command in stunned silence. 3 weeks later, Admiral Helena Chen stood in Earth's orbital command station, watching as the first diplomatic vessels from the Meridian Alliance approached under escort. Behind her, representatives from 7 previously conquered species waited, their expressions ranging from skeptical to vengeful. "Are we certain about this?" asked General Kirio, an Arctarian whose silvery skin still bore the ritual scars of mourning for his lost home world. "The Meridians cannot be trusted." "Perhaps not," Chen acknowledged. But if we execute them or force unconditional surrender, we become what we sought to prevent. The cycle continues. She turned to face the gathered representatives. For centuries, humanity fought itself over territory, resources, ideology. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. When we finally reached for the stars, we carried that violent legacy with us, but also the lessons it taught us. Through the viewport, Earth was visible, a blue jewel wrapped in the orbital defense network that had remained hidden until needed. Surrounding the planet were shipyards constructing not just warships, but humanitarian vessels, scientific explorers, and terraforming platforms. The Meridians believed us primitive because we chose to appear so, Chen continued. They saw our visible satellites and modest space stations but missed the quantum shipyards beneath Europa's ice. They cataloged our public communications but never detected the subspace network connecting our deep space outposts. They saw what we wanted them to see, a divided, vulnerable species just beginning to reach beyond its cradle. The first Meridian shuttle docked and Supreme Commander TX emerged, flanked by a minimal security detail. His proud bearing was diminished but not broken. He had chosen diplomacy over extinction, a choice that had likely saved his species. They came expecting easy prey, Chen said softly. Instead, they found humanity, a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and its own self-destructive tendencies. A species that transformed violence into vigilance, paranoia into preparation. As Tal approached, his eyes widened at the sight of the representatives from species the Meridians had conquered or displaced. Chen saw the moment he truly understood what had happened. His alliance hadn't just been militarily outmaneuvered, they had been morally judged and found wanting. "Welcome to Earth, Commander Tal," Chen greeted him formally. "This is the beginning of a difficult conversation, but a necessary one." Tal looked past her to the viewport, where Earth's full defense fleet was now visible. Hundreds of vessels of varying designs and capabilities, some bearing the influence of technologies from worlds the Meridians had tried to erase from existence. "We believed ourselves to be the apex predators of this sector," Tal said quietly. "We never considered that a true apex species doesn't need to constantly prove its dominance, a lesson humanity learned through bitter experience." Chen replied, "We spent thousands of years proving our dominance over each other. When we finally looked to the stars, we promised ourselves we wouldn't repeat those mistakes." She gestured for him to join the gathering of representatives. "You came to conquer Earth. Instead, you've discovered something far more valuable, a future where strength doesn't require subjugation." As the diplomatic proceedings began, transmission beacons carried the news across human space and beyond. The Meridian Alliance, scourge of 17 systems, had met its match, not in superior firepower or ruthless tactics, but in a species that had mastered the art of patience and preparation. Throughout the galaxy, observers noted how the humans had revealed only a fraction of their true capabilities, enough to force capitulation without resorting to genocide. It raised unsettling questions. What other secrets did Earth harbor? What other weapons remained unused? How many other seemingly primitive worlds were watching, learning, and preparing? The message was clear to any who might follow in Meridian's footsteps: underestimate humanity at your peril. They do not announce their strength with displays of dominance. They do not conquer for conquest's sake. They wait in silence, building and preparing, revealing their true nature only when threatened. And when they finally show themselves, it is already too late. In the vast darkness between stars, words spread quickly. Earth is not prey. Earth is patient. Earth remembers. Earth endures.